guided surgery workflows. So let's welcome Charles.
Awesome, thank you. From Oregon, Portland, our lab is about 10 minutes from downtown Portland, and we only do full arch. So we don't do single unit implants, we don't do removable, no ortho, no crown and bridge, just basic implants supported, mostly fixed, some removable. I do have a lot of Straumann in our lab. So in Portland, about 97% of the specialists place Straumann. So a lot of our final restorations have Straumann implants, and I also have a consulting company called Alliance Training, and so we help labs leverage new technologies. So guided surgery, photogrammetry, putting everything together, we help people go through that process. And I've got it's a free newsletter you can scan with this QR code, and then every about week or 2 weeks, it's all basically full arch stuff. So recent innovations, failures in our lab, updates in research, things at conventions, tips and tricks. It's all basically meant to be read in 5 minutes. So it's totally free. And I flew in last night. I'm headed back tomorrow. My son, his birthday party is tomorrow. These are my two boys, Connor and Dean. Dean's in the middle. He just turned 4. And my wife, Esther, she's also a lab technician. So we're a small boutique lab basically focused on just basically full arch prosthetics. And for fun, I grew up playing hockey. Played hockey in college. Portland does not have professional hockey, but we like to go to the games. We have a minor league team called the Winterhawks. That's kind of what we do for fun. And then my youngest one, Dean, he's into just kind of playing around. So he just turned 4, and he loves just hanging out in the garage and playing. One of the things that I'll talk about today is this graph, which I think is really important, and this is called the emotional cycle of change. And you will experience this anytime you do something new, dental or anything, right? Whether it's sports or hobbies or anything, any new technology. And essentially what it means is that there's a lot of optimism when we've got new technology. And what happens is as you try to leverage that technology, you go from a state of optimism into informed pessimism, which is, hey, like, this is harder than I thought it would be. These are some roadblocks I didn't experience. And then you always end up in what's called the valley of despair, which is you're in this place, you've encountered a lot of resistance, you've had failures that you didn't anticipate, and you're like, hey, do I keep doing this or do I give up? And you have two options. You can give up with whatever you're doing, and then you can go back and then do the whole thing over again with something new, or you work your way out of it and you build skills and strategies and you find success, and you can use those strategies to leverage this thing all over again. And for those of you that have gone from doing traditional analog conversions to digital, I mean, you've definitely experienced this, and I'm gonna go through this a couple times today. So this is the cycle of change that we can basically apply to anything. And what I'm gonna show today is a lot of my failures. So a lot of the challenges that we've had in cases. This is a text I just got yesterday. So this is from a prosthodontist we work with in Wisconsin. I haven't heard from him in a while. I'll say, hey, hope you're doing well. Call me when you have a moment. He sends a series of photos. Like, that's never good, right? Everyone knows that feeling. There's like 10 or 15 photos, and hey, call me when you get a second. That's never a good thing. This is a hybrid that we delivered about a year ago. So a monolithic zirconia with a titanium bar, fractured, right? And people will say, hey, this is a bulletproof prosthesis. Titanium bar, zirconia sleeve, bulletproof prosthesis. Is that really true? What are the instances where it is? What are the limitations of this prosthesis? How do we go from treatment planning to surgery to the final prosthesis to maybe prevent something like this? And here it is in the mouth. So I'm gonna talk about the failures that we experience. This is the dental challenge I'll talk about today. And then I also have a business challenge. So we're a 5-man lab that only does full arch fixed. And we're in Portland. So here is my lab, right? And if you type in Clear Choice, you'll see how close the Clear Choice is from my lab. Clear Choice is not even a mile, 0.7 miles, 2 minutes away from my lab. And they've been there for about 15 years. And then we've got a new full arch center called Nuvia that just opened up about 6 months ago. And then that is 2 miles, 7 minutes from us. They opened recently. And then also last year, we had a full arch master's location open in Wilsonville, which is basically 10 miles from us. We've got all of these full arch centers that are flooding into the Portland area. So what happens in that scenario? Well, number one is that these patients aren't patients that see a dentist normally, right? They got terminal dentition, they're looking for something fixed and usually cheap. So what happens is the patients, instead of going to the surgeon, to the dentist, or the prosthodontist, they go to a full arch center that drives down the fees. So then they go to the prosthodontist that drives down their fees, and which in turn drives down our fees. Right? Everyone nodding because you're starting to experience that crunch, which is happening. So we charge about $2,000 to go to a case, scan it with photogrammetry, deliver a temporary next day, and then when we have a final prosthesis, which is titanium bar zirconia, we charge $6,000. So basically $8,000 from surgery to final, right? You figure some of these cases, the patients go into a full arch center, they're going maybe 15 grand all in. Like, so why would someone use someone like me? And for some of you here who are maybe in that boutique realm, like why would they use you? So there's sort of a business switch that I've been having to try to do. And this is a really important book which has helped me make the transition. I just finished it last year. It's called Unreasonable Hospitality. And the video that was showing in the background was a camera from a restaurant in New York called 11 Madison Park. And this was just a normal kind of 2-3 star restaurant, nothing special. And these guys, Will Guadara is the head of operations for that restaurant. They wanted to be the best. They were outside of the top 50. And they went to, there's a meeting every year where they name the top 50 restaurants. So they went there, they were number 50, which was really devastating for them. So they're like, hey, how do we become number one? And the chef said, hey, I can't make better food, right? The stuff I'm putting out is the best I can do. So then Will's like, okay, well, let's leverage something else, which is customer service. And the whole theme of this book is unreasonable hospitality, because whether you know it or not, we are all in the service industry. Right? The question is, maybe you know it, maybe you don't. A couple takeaways from this book. It's a great book, a lot of fun stories. One of them is that it may not be possible to do everything perfectly, but it is possible to do many things perfectly. And we do not try to be a jack of all trades. We do one thing reasonably well because we fail at it very, very quickly. So our iteration of failure to success is so quick that we tend to grow a little bit faster. And then this is the big thing, like I just said, no matter what business you're in, you are in the hospitality business. And what I realized is that our prosthetics can only be so good, right? It could be the best in the world. Aesthetics, fabrication, materials, whatever. But really the takeaway is that 50% is the product. 50% is the experience. So how do we leverage the experience? So this lecture is all about digital technology, software, photogrammetry, guided surgery, but also some other stuff that you can build into your business to make it more of a well-rounded experience. And that's what we've been trying to do. So one of the things is that almost all of my cases come from the dental team, meaning it's a surgeon, a restorative dentist, and then we're the third member, which is the lab technician. So the goal is, of the 3 partners in that group, how do we hold a bigger part, right? If I'm going to charge a premium fee, then I need to take on more responsibility. So what we do is for every case, we have the patient come to the lab and we do a full workup. Whether they have accepted treatment or not, they've seen the surgeon, they've seen the dentist, they come see us, and this is kind of what we do. So this is a case, Jamie came to our lab. She had seen the surgeon, seen the general dentist. She had not accepted treatment yet. But the challenge was she had some failing dentition, was lacking posterior teeth, and the surgeon and the dentist was trying to figure out, hey, is this going to be an FP1 or an FP2 or an FP3 or potentially removable? And you look at this is a very, very challenging case, right? Just number one, from gingival display, that's a big one. considering a full arch case. And so what we do is we have a come to the lab, we take photos, we take all around photos. Any dentists here? By any chance? Okay. Maybe you take good photos, but a lot of the photos that I get aren't the best photos. Right? I don't get a good at-rest photo. I don't get a good Duchenne exaggerated smiling photo. So we take a photo, we take our face hunter, which is our facial scanner, and then we sit down with the patient, and then I import the photos and the video, and then we go into Smile Cloud. And we do this in front of the patient. So Smile Cloud is a software. It was created by a prosthodontist, Florin Kofar here. So Florin is a prosthodontist from Romania. Him and Christian Coachman created a digital smile design app. Some of you may have used that before. The idea was that, this is probably 10 years ago, this was like an iPad app. The idea was that you can do a wax up, merge it to your intraoral scan, create an additive wax up, and then turn that into either a snap-on smile or a physical wax up, build up a motivational mock-up, and then go to final prosthetics. Florin digitized this and made it a more, let's say, user-friendly and advanced software called Smile Cloud. And the way it works is that it uses AI to create a library unique to that patient. It scans the patient's face, it creates a unique set of libraries, and then you can show the patient a smile design. If they approve it, you can actually export out the physical STL files. So if I want to create a denture or turn that into a wax up and then use that as a temporary, I can actually have the STL files. And so you just import a normal 2D photo. The software will scan the biometrics of the face and then give you a set of libraries that it thinks might best fit that patient's photo. And all of these teeth are unique to that patient. We're not forcing the patient into a pre-existing library. And then it's got an online cloud-based software that allows us to share all the stuff with our team. The surgeon, the general dentist, you can drop in STL files, DICOM files for CT scans, jaw motion, STL files, PDFs, photos. You drag and drop it all into the cloud, and it's all in one place that everyone can access it. And so we got trained on it about 3 years ago. I went to Straumann headquarters in Boston. We got trained by Florin on the software, and I came home, and like any good lab technician, right, I tried it on myself. So I took a photo, a selfie, and I was like, why is my nose so big? I mean, it's probably always been that big. And so I'm upstairs, and then I realized something that I had never noticed, which is my midline's off, like kind of by a lot. I never noticed. I'm freaking out. My wife's a lab technician, so I run downstairs, and my wife's name is Esther. I'm like, Esther, when did you notice my midline was off? And she was like, when I met you. I'm a lab technician, duh. And I was like, and you still married me? She was like, yeah, you have a great personality. And my wife always does this. She turns it around on me, right? She'll be, okay, well, like, what if my midline was off by a lot, like a tooth? Would you still marry me? I was like, yeah, totally. But in my head, I was like, oh, no, like, no way. So I go back upstairs, and I finish the smile design. And what you'll notice is that it's very photorealistic, right? It does not look like it was like what you would get from exocad, right? From the typical exocad mock-up, does not look like that. This also took about a minute to do, right? If I did this in exocad, I'm extracting teeth, I'm waxing it up, I'm merging the photo. It does not look that good, and it takes a really long time, maybe 45 minutes at best. And it's just like one of those things where you buy a new car, all of a sudden on the road, all you see are that car. Well, I started doing Smile Cloud, and then in the media, I would see all this stuff like, hey, people are tired of teeth all looking the same. And when I go back and look at my cases, not to say that I had bad results, but when I look at my cases, there's definitely a Charles tooth, right? There's a couple libraries that I like. We all are probably the same. We have a couple of libraries that we like to use, and we force patients into those libraries. Not to say that in the mouth, these were bad results, like they were actually good results. But think about it, like if you got a patient with terminal dentition, the bar for making them look good is pretty low, honestly, right? So the goal for me this year, or the last 3 years, was like, hey, I want to make prosthetics that's bespoke, that's custom to the patient. I don't want to be forcing them into 1 or 2 or 3 exocad libraries that I like. And so we started doing this with Smile Design and Smile Cloud. Patient would come in, we do the full workup. Here's an example of a case, Carrie. So she had an upper partial and failing anterior teeth. This is her pre-op. So Carrie comes in the lab, we take the photos, we sit down, we do a smile cloud, and then we basically say, hey, like, what do you want your smile to look like? And almost every single time, the dentist is not usually asking them that question. They're focused on other logistics, like the implants and healing time and cost and appointments. They're not talking about, hey, like, what exactly do you want to look like? So it's really refreshing to them. We do a simulated result. So that's on the right is the Smile Cloud 2D workup. And then about 6 months ago, once AI started becoming more integrated into the software, they had the ability to turn our 2D photos into a video simulation. So these are both 2D photos. The left is the pre-op. And so the AI within the software is able to take that 2D photo and turn it into a video simulation. And then our simulated result, we can also do the same. And I would say that 8 out of 10 times the patients will get very emotional seeing this. And it was interesting because we still did this, but the video movement made it a more emotional experience. And so this is the simulated result. And if you've been on social media, you can see that this AI type of technology is now pretty much all over the place, right? You can get an app, take a photo, and then do that. The difference between this and any of those AI apps is that I need to be able to execute on this, right? If I've sold a patient that this is what they're going to look like, I need to have the tools to actually execute on that. And so what I can do is she approved it. We take these files, and we actually take the STL files and take it to our temporary. And so she wanted kind of a more natural workup. Her normal midline was not coincidental with her facial midline. It was slightly to her right. She wanted to kind of keep that. And so this is only successful if I can execute on what we showed. And this is the temporary. So go to surgery, we scan it, we deliver the temporary. This is the actual result. This is the AI video created from that photo. And then the question is, okay, well, like, how close did we get from our prediction, right? Because this only works well if we can make a prediction and execute on that prediction. Well, here is our prediction, and then here's our actual result. So pretty darn close. And so this is part of, in terms of us having a bigger, more important part of the group, this is our contribution to the group, is number one, sitting with the patient, spending the time going over the process, talking about teeth, and then also delivering this. And this has been a huge, huge value to the team. Our goal is not to sell patients on treatment, but when they see this and they talk to us, we're not someone who's taking money from them. We're answering questions. We're here to help. A lot of times we will end up closing cases just by going through this process. And the reason why I started doing this is because I've had a lot of failures. This is one I'd like to show. This is Natalia. This is Natalia's pre-op. So something really bad is going to happen to Natalia. She looks great, right? There's no reason to do a full mouth reconstruction on Natalia. So what's going to happen to Natalia? Well, I'm an LA-born kid, and when I moved to Oregon, I was like, oh, like they have these things called tractors. Like I'd never seen a tractor from LA. Natalia was driving a tractor from her house to her friend's house, and then rolled off the side of the road. Then the tractor basically rolled over her face and crushed her. So this is her CT in the OR. Here's how she presents, and that's a tooth in her right eye orbital there. So she actually lost her right eye, and this is how she presents right before lunch. I would not show this after lunch. This is the reduction of the mandibular fracture, and then this is her after the orthodontics. And so now we're at the point, well, okay, this is, I think, 8 to 9 months after the accident, and this is how she presents. So the plan was obviously a big maxillary defect. The plan was to take a fibula to reconstruct the defect, put a crown on this tooth, and then 2 implants for a bridge in the lower anterior. That was the plan. The surgeon we work with, Barbara Khatib, he's in downtown Portland. He's about 15 minutes from us. They are they do a lot of out-of-the-box surgeries. They do a lot of cancer and fibula reconstructions. People fly from all over the country to see them. We did this case a while ago, it was, right before the pandemic. And so we planned out the fibula where the field of cuts were going to be, where the implants were going to go. And he is one of those surgeons who is very techie and kind of very DIY. Some of you guys might have surgeons like that. And he's like, hey, like, I want to present on this case. I want to design my own prosthesis. And I'm like, okay, cool. And so he designed it. He sent me a picture of it. I'm like, hey, are you sure you don't want me to design it? I can design it and just tell everyone you did it. He's like, no, that's fine. I think it's going to be okay. I'm like, all right. So he does it. And at the time, we were beta testing some nanoceramics. Tooth color nanoceramics were just coming into the market at that point, so we were beta testing a few. One of the companies that we were testing sent us bleach shades. So this is his composite work on a bleach. I'm like, hey, are you sure you don't want me to do this? I'll just tell everyone you did it. He's like, no, I think it looks fine. I'm like, well, okay, let's see what happens. So we go to surgery. This is Natalia before the case. And then we go to the reconstruction. So here it is at the leg. This is the fibular reconstruction at the leg. And this is the insertion of the prosthesis. And then this is her after the surgery. Here's her pano. So you can see here, upper fibula, implants placed with these long multi-units. And then I'm at the point now when I finally am able to take over the case. This is not a great starting point. This is very obvious, right? Gingival display, tooth size, occlusal plane can't, I mean, you name it, like this is not a place where you want to be starting. Natalia is also an architect, so very, very meticulous about line angles and tooth rotations and aesthetics. And so this is what our first wax up, mock-up try-in. Here's number 2, here's number 3. At this point, the implants at the bottom were placed. Here's number 4, here's number 5. Each appointment, she's getting a Sharpie, she's marking things, we're taking photos, it's about an hour. I think this is number 6. At this point, the implants on the bottom are already integrated. We've got a temporary and then a crown on that tooth. And then this is, I think, after 12 try-ins, 12 prototype try-ins, we finally finished the case, and it was about 1.5 years total. And from a lab perspective, we don't make money on this case at this point, right? The dentist doesn't really either. The patient doesn't want to spend 1.5 years doing this either. Granted, this is a complicated reconstruction case, but this shouldn't take 1.5 years to do. And this is one of those cases when we started using SmileCloud, I'll go back and then be like, gosh, like if I did this case again with SmileCloud, would that have changed things? So this is the 2D mock-up. I just thought, okay, if the very first appointment, if I was able to go to the office, take a photo, give her the mouse, plan the case out, will this have saved us maybe 6 prototypes? I mean, probably, right? This is the 2D mock-up. And then I did this again when the video came out, the video option. And the challenge is there's some drawbacks with the AI. Number one, it fixed her eye. And so we're not going to do that. I did a case with a cleft lip patient the other day, and it fixed his cleft lip. He's like, oh, I want to do that too. I'm like, well, we're not doing that. So there are some drawbacks, but the upsides for sure outweigh the potential cons of this process. And again, as we do these, it was a lot of, okay, this is going to be great using the software. Okay, this is what it does, great. This is what it doesn't do well. Is it going to work in our practice? And then we iterate, and then we find a system that makes it work in a logistical, profitable way. We do this a lot now. Every single case we do SmileCloud, and this is a very challenging case that a lot of you probably experience is that, okay, terminal dentition, loss of vertical, right? This is going to be a double arch case. How did we used to do these cases? Well, we would probably do a wax rim, try to open up the vertical, and just kind of guess, right? Aesthetically, we might be able to figure out where the teeth need to be, but can he physiologically handle being in that vertical? Right? We don't know. So he comes in, this is Darren. We'll do a SmileCloud workup, do a wax up, and then like, okay, well, I want to do something. I want to make sure that physiologically he can handle being at that vertical. And so what we do is we take our SmileCloud wax ups that were approved by the team, and then this is in zirconia. We basically design and we build up a snap-on smile. So all the STL files came directly from SmileCloud, so we're able to open the vertical at that simulated position, fabricate a snap-on smile, and then this is the key to the process really, is that Darren will wear this for anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks to make sure that, number one, aesthetically it's good, number two, that physiologically he can handle being at that vertical. And then he comes in and then we take a final CT scan with him wearing that snap-on smile, because I need to have, quote unquote, a virtual articulator, right? So we scanned with a snap-on smile, with the condyles. So number one, I can verify to make sure that he's in centric relation, and that I can use this to basically finish the case. I'll talk more about this later when we talk about photogrammetry and registration points and things like that. But this is our workup, and this is how we maintain the vertical from our snap-on smile to the temporary to the final prosthesis. And I'll show you the process. And here's another case, Linda, same thing, right? Very collapsed. I don't know if you can see this, but you can see there's a little shadow between 8 and 9. That's her lower anterior tooth, like the incisal edge, right in the embryo space of 8 and 9. So obviously, like, no posterior support. The plan was to extract the lower teeth, do a pretty big bone reduction. But if you notice here from the upper and lower intraoral scans, right, very, very collapsed. And also no posterior support, no restorative space in the posterior on really either side. And so what we did was we did the same thing. She came in, we did a smile cloud, we created these upper and lower snap-on smiles. And so we did two things. We opened her vertical, and at the bottom, we gave her some occlusion so that when we fabricate our prosthesis, we can make sure she stays at that vertical. And so she wore that. We did some adjustments. We adjusted her occlusion a little bit, and she was actually proven to be stable at that vertical. She comes back in, sees the surgeon. They take a final CT scan with the snap-on smile. You can see already how much restorative space that we've opened up by opening up her vertical and keeping her at that position. So we got restorative space, and then we also are able to verify she's in centric relation, and then use this intraoral scan and the CT scan for the final prosthesis. So you can see here, this is the case that we actually, I'm showing you, these are the 4 implants, this is the post-op. So you can see the reduction, and you can see that we're maintaining her vertical and the restorative space that we captured. So the question is, okay, well, what's a digital conversion, right? Why is this superior to doing a denture conversion, which we did for many years? Well, number one, it's a stronger prosthesis, whether it's printed or milled, right? We don't have these big holes around temp cylinders that we're picking up with some sort of chairside acrylic. It's less chair time. Patient goes to surgery, we place the implants, we scan it, they go home, we go to the lab, the dentist doesn't even bother coming. It's an abbreviated workflow to final. So a lot of these cases, which I'll show you, is that we nail the temporary, we nail the aesthetics. So going from the temporary to the final prosthesis is very, very few appointments, and we're able to actually have a predictable CR occlusion. So what does this look like? Here's Pamela. The plan was to do a lower arch guided surgery, extraction of the teeth. This is in co-diagnostics. So all this can be done with the co-diagnostics guided surgery software. Plan the implants, plan the reduction, and then this is the lower bone reduction guide, and then we do a wax up. And this is the key to the whole process. Whether you do this with photogrammetry or any other system, this is kind of your takeoff position where you have a wax up, it's in the vertical that you want, and you got some sort of registration marker. In this case, we've got this lower surgical guide. And so we go to surgery. This is printed. We have a Straumann P50 printer. This is their surgical guide, clear resin. Right. This is our bone reduction plan. We charge $1,600 for our stackable guides. We design them all in-house. They're all printed in-house. So our profit margin is pretty high when we do these cases guided. That's our reduction, implant placement through the guide, and then the multi-units SRAs are placed, and then we scan this case. This case was done about 7 years ago with grammetry at the time. But the process is this, right? All you need to do is take your day of surgery scans and have some sort of marker to merge that to our pre-op workup. In this case, it's our surgical guide. Like, that's our registration point. And so when I get this data day of surgery, it's a 15-minute process. All I'm doing is taking my wax up, which is already done ahead of time. I'm just merging in the implant positions, and then we're printing or milling our provisional. We deliver it next day. We tell the restorative dentist, don't bother coming to surgery. We'll take the scans, schedule the patient after lunch the following day. We usually deliver the prosthesis around 10 or 11 a.m., and then they deliver the prosthesis. About 90% of the time, the dentist does not have to anesthetize the patient. They don't have to get the patient numb. They simply remove the healing caps, screw it in. It's about a 10-minute process, some slight occlusal adjustments, and then that's it. Right? That's the power of this process. And then here's the provisional. The reason why we are using the CT scan is that when you do this case, this is a registration marker from Digital Arch. It's called Arch Tracer. But you need some sort of breadcrumb to merge your pre-op to your scan. Well, this is in the palate and the maxillary case, that's pretty easy to do, right? This is the pre-op scan day of surgery. The surgeon will screw in these two registration markers. They'll take a pre-op scan, and then after the implants go in with the healing caps on, they'll take another scan, and then we use the registration points to merge all of our data sets together. Like, that's how basically this works. On the maxilla, it's pretty straightforward. On the mandible, not so much, right? On Pamela's case, just figure, I need to have at least 3, okay? I need to triangulate the scan. It's very, very challenging to get these into the retromolar pad position. And then this one here in the symphysis is also very challenging because it's got to be below the bone reduction. So the pre-op, number one, pre-op, the surgeon has to place the screws and then take a scan. That can prove challenging for the lower arch. Even if you can do it, right, being able to do this on after surgery, right, 3 markers on a bone reduction, on a sutured arch with blood, with a mobile floor of the mandible, it's very, very hard to do. So I'll show you in a second how we do it with the CT. But we basically go to final very, very quickly, right? Here's Joanne. This is an upper arch. She came to the lab. We do a smile cloud. She approves it. She goes to surgery. We do photogrammetry. We mill this case in the lab. She comes back the next day. This is her prosthesis, and this is the case delivered next day. So she sees the dentist the next day at 1 p.m. They deliver it. This is what she looks like. And she goes home like this. She wanted kind of a natural tooth setup, which I like to do. And so she wears this for about 9 weeks, and she's the surgeon. The surgeon approves the case to go to final. Implants are integrated. So what are the steps to go to final, right? Aesthetically, she's good. She's happy with the way the teeth look. So she goes to the dentist. The dentist will scan the prosthesis. Okay, so what I need is 2 things. I need to see where they made adjustments to my prosthesis. So they will scan the upper arch, get as much tissue as possible. I need to see all of the occlusal changes on the prosthesis, and then you remove the prosthesis and scan the tissue. Those are the only 2 things that change. From day of surgery to when the implant's integrated, we have changed in occlusal marks on the prosthesis and then tissue morphology changes. So scan the tissue, and then all I do is in the lab, I merge the scans together. This is my temporary scan, my temporary design, and then this is the scan, and we merge the 2. So I can see exactly where she wore in any types of changes to the prosthesis. I adjust the prosthesis and make sure that's nice, tight, and convex to the tissue. So the dentist sees the patient, they take 2 scans, and then that's it. The second appointment is we're delivering the final. That's all we're doing, right? So here's her on the second appointment. And that's it. So we did surgery. The next day she got a temporary. Her first appointment, they took 2 scans. And the second appointment, we delivered the final. And that's the whole point of the process, is that some people will say, oh, well, you know, I can convert a denture in 30 minutes. Like, what's the point of doing digital? What's the point of photogrammetry? The point is, it's not about the 30 minutes day of surgery. It's about, after things are integrated, how quickly and efficiently are we going to final? Like, that's really the takeaway, right? If I'm saving an hour at surgery, that's useless if the dentist is spending 3 to 4 appointments with prototypes, verification jigs, wax rooms, whatever. Like, that's the takeaway. I think it's very small-minded to say, oh, well, I can convert a denture in 30 minutes. I'm not going to go digital. Well, look at the big picture. The big picture is we're selling the full experience, not just day of surgery. And I would argue that most of the patients want to go home. They don't want, especially a double arch case, right? Maybe you're doing a conversion in 2 hours. They would rather go home, come back the next day, and then screw in 2 temporaries, right? They're not going to go party that night. They're going to go home and pass out. There's no reason for them to leave with the teeth. So that's Joanne. Pamela, I showed you this case, and the dentist actually had to retire. She had a terminal illness. So Pamela ended up wearing her prosthesis for about 9 months. And then the surgeon was like, hey, you know what, I'm just going to restore this case. And so because we captured all of our records ahead of time. On the lower arch, it's not as critical to be worried about tissue contact, right? Like we are in the maxilla. So on the lower arch, all I did was take our original file and then turn it into final zirconia. So Pamela came back after 9 months. This is her prosthesis. The surgeon removed it. I had my prosthesis ready to go, and then he delivered it. She's treatment planning right now for the upper, but basically in this lower here, we did surgery. She had a temporary. She disappeared for 9 months. She came back in and we delivered a final. And that's all because I was able to capture all those records ahead of time with, in this case, grammetry, but now with photogrammetry. And that's really the takeaway. So if you've been to any conference, if you've been on Instagram or any social media, there are a lot of ways to capture data. There's photogrammetry. There's a lot of talk about grammetry, different scan bodies. Some of them are here at the meeting. What is photogrammetry? How many people are using photogrammetry right now? Okay, a few. So for those that aren't using it, what is it really? Well, it's not new. It's new to dental, but basically what it does is in the commercial field, in this case here, they use photogrammetry at an accident site to capture multiple images of a capture site, of an accident site, and then recreate that. That's basically what photogrammetry is. It's extraoral scanning, right? Here's another example. This guy here, he's surrounded by 75 cameras, and he's going to walk into this little chamber. All the cameras are at a different position. They're going to take a photo at the exact same time, and then the software is going to render and put those photos together and then recreate the image. So if you notice here, he's going to walk in. At the bottom half, you can see the photos, and that's the rendering, but he's going to jump here in a second. You'll see all these cameras take a single photo, and then the software will render those together. And so you see a flash, all the cameras took a single photo, and at the bottom, that's the rendering from those images put together. That's essentially what photogrammetry is. We have ICAM. There are a lot of options on the market, and the reason why I chose ICAM was because it's the only true dynamic photogrammetry. There's a lot of details which you can talk to Mirna, who's here from Biometric, but there's a lot of thought that went into the process, the scan bodies, the workflows. In terms of this versus grammetry, right? Obviously, we did this for a long time before we had photogrammetry available. The difference is really how repeatable and predictable is the data. That's really what it comes down to. Straumann has their own version. This is sort of like a hybrid version, which has its pros and cons. But to break it down for you, grammetry versus photogrammetry. Grammetry is basically just scan bodies, right? And some of those are closed systems, some of them are open. They're just specialized scan bodies, essentially. Photogrammetry is scan bodies and a camera. So in terms of hardware, for grammetry, you can just use your existing scanner. Photogrammetry obviously requires a dedicated photogrammetry camera. Grammetry cost is very variable, right? You can get a grammetry system which can cost as much as $300 per arch versus something that could be $3,000 to $4,000 per arch. That's maybe reusable. Photogrammetry is much higher. When I got mine, it was definitely in the mid 30K range. But here's really the breakdown: is if I took one patient, let's say 4 maxillary implants, if I had 10 offices scan that patient with a grammetry system, the data is all going to be different because it's variable on experience, scanning experience. What scanner do they have? Is it the dentist who's doing it? Is it the assistant who's doing it? There's a lot of variables, so it's very challenging. You're not going to find any literature that says, hey, this grammetry system is X accurate and compared to something else, because there's too many variables. With photogrammetry, and especially with ICAM, which is what I use, it doesn't really matter, right? I could have 10 different people scanning the same case, and it's all going to be within tenths of a micron of each other. The data is going to be essentially the same. That's the difference. Does this matter, right? A couple hundred microns, 5 to 10 microns, like, does that matter? Well, it does. There's something that's called tolerance accumulation, and this is how it works. If I scan a case with a Trios, I'm already at 200 microns, really, probably worse, honest. That's a very conservative guess. If I'm printing, my printer will add inaccuracies to the system. If I'm going direct, if I'm using tie bases, it's going to also add additional variables to the system. And so my final prosthesis is not 200 microns, it's at least 285 to 400, probably more. And that's because as you go from your data acquisition to the process, your fabrication process introduces inaccuracies to the system. If I look at our process now with iMetric iCam, right? My scan's 5 to 10 microns. If I'm milling a bar, that's around, 50 to 70 microns. My final prosthesis is about that. That's a pretty big difference, right? And like, okay, well, does that matter? Right? Does that difference matter? 400 to 500 microns to 80 microns. Like, does that matter? Well, I asked the smartest person I know. Okay, run a meta-analysis and tell me what are the limitations and can you quantify passivity for me? The general consensus is basically this, is that anything less than 50 microns, we can't do. We can't physically do that in our lab with today's technology. We can't do that. 150 microns is more or less, based on literature, considered acceptable, and that's what we can do with the printing and the milling that we have in the laboratory. That should sort of be the hallmark, the goal is that 150 microns. So what if you don't hit that, right? What if you're 150? Well, that's when you get screw loosening, screw breakage, potential bone loss, fracture of the prosthesis, fracture of the multi-unit. When I got the iCam, the question is, well, okay, am I going to make more money on my conversions? And that's the question I get pretty often today. Is a lab will say, hey, you know what? We do X amount of conversions, denture conversions a month. Like, are we going to make more money with iCam? And so here's kind of a quick breakdown. This was our payment for the iCam. When I do one of these cases, we typically mill hours, and then these are the desk screws. So most of our cases are Straumann. I use the desk 19.069 screw. It's about $60 for a set of 4 screws. And so when I do a case with iMetric, when I was still paying off the scanner, I was sort of in this range here. So my first arch is sort of offset by my monthly fee, and then as I did more arches, obviously I made more money, offsetting my monthly payment for the scanner. And then after we paid off the scanner, it was incrementally more for that. So this is the photogrammetry data. Well, compare it to when we did conversions, right? So we would make a denture, we would buy temp copings, we would charge labor to be at that case, and we would charge about the same, about $1,800 for a single arch to be there for the case. And so this was our analog for doing conversions, right? Obviously you make about the same because there's no monthly payment. The material cost is the same per arch. So if you do it side by side, right? This is when you're paying off the iCam. It's about the same, more or less. If you're doing 5 arches a month, you end up being about the same. Once you pay off the iCam, let's say if you're financing it, then you're a little bit more. But again, like, this is, I think, a very short-sighted analysis. It's not something that where all of a sudden you're like, hey, I'm going to make a lot more money. Well, number one, there's scalability, right? And here's kind of a breakdown of the pros and cons. So number one, right, iCam versus analog conversions, I would say that you do have some protection for securing the prosthesis if you're using iCam. If I did a conversion, I would have zero protection as to whether or not I was getting the final prosthesis. Right now, it's not 100%, but I would say it's high 90% that if I do a case with iCam and I have that data and I'm going to scan the final, I'm going to secure that case more often than not. It does help scale, right? We know that there's no new lab technicians coming into the field. How hard is it to find someone who can go to a case, who can talk to a surgeon, who could do a denture conversion, and who isn't weird? That's hard. That's hard to find, right? Those people don't exist anymore. So being able to scale these cases and having someone to go to conversions is definitely an unlimited resource. There's also territory scaling. I'm doing more and more cases outside of our geography because we're able to do it digitally. And then abbreviated workflows, right? Some cases can go to final I would say most cases go to final much quicker, going from photogrammetry versus analog data. So putting it all together, this is our workflow today for seeing a patient and then going to surgery. This is Michael. Michael will come to the lab. We'll take photos, we'll do a smile cloud, we'll do a workup, the whole team will approve the case, right? We'll make sure that we've got the proper photos, and then his CT scan must be a closed bite CT scan in centric relation, right? It's very common for surgeons to have the patient bite down on a bite stick and it's open bite. We don't want that if you're doing the CT-based process. You want to have a closed bite, and then I've got my trio scan superimposed over the top. I can see the condyle is seated in the fossa, so I can verify that he is in centric relation. For a double arch case with digital, whether it's photogrammetry or whatever, it was very common for me in the past to scan the case, go back the next day, deliver the temps, and have the patient have a posterior premature interference and anterior open bite. That was very common. Because all the records were not in CR, the teeth come back, the condyle sits back into centric relation, and then all of a sudden your records don't match up. That's a CR issue that addresses this issue for these cases. So we do a mock-up. The teeth is from Smile Cloud. We extract and then plan the reduction. And then day of surgery, right, the surgeon will place the implants, place the multi-units, the SRAs, do our photogrammetry scan, do our scan body scan. We'll do our trios of the tissue. And then what we do is, this is our pre-op workup, and then this is our post-op on the right. So what we do is we have basically unlimited registration points, and we merge our post-op data to the pre-op data using all the bony anatomy. That's the process. So we get very, very good registration. We're not reliant on 2 or 3 bone screws that may or may not be distorted from the trio scan. We align it. So this is now the new alignment of our post-op data based off that CT. And then we align our tissue scans. And then our wax up is already done. Michael comes back the next day, and then the occlusion is very, very predictable. And it's simply because we are going to using our CT scan and verifying their centric relation, and that is really the key to this process, is using and maintaining that vertical and that bite. So going back to this case here, I have a lot of FP1 failures, and we'll go more into this in a little bit, but I think that part of the issue is that a lot of these full arch centers done by dentists are FP1s, not because every patient is an FP1 candidate, but that surgically they're not equipped or ready to do a big bone reduction that a case like this deserves, right? Obviously, there are a lot of other modalities to treat the patient, but she saw us, we did the workup, and part of the challenge is that a final prosthesis will basically look like something like this, right? That's an FP1. An FP2 looks like this, and then an FP3 looks like this. Right? It's all depending on the amount of reduction. I mean, that's basically what we're looking at. So for a fixed full arch, like those are basically our options. FP1, it's kind of like wearing shorts. FP3 is sort of like wearing pants. And then what happens is that most of the time you plan for shorts or pants. And then what happens is that if you screw up one of those two things, or maybe if you're a hillbilly, you end up with jorts, right? No one plans for jorts. No one says, hey, I'm going to wake up today and wear jorts. That's not how it works. You have pants that get screwed up and you end up with jorts. And that's what happens with FP2s. Is no one plans on FP2. You plan for one of these. You plan FP1, you plan FP3. Something gets messed up and you end up with an FP2. And so for this case here, really not a good candidate. And what are the other, as a lab technician, right, what are the other things that we need to look at? Well, obviously we're looking at gingival display, but there are other factors as well. Number one is like, what's the biotype for a case like this, right? FP1 does better with different types of tissue. So number one, right, looking at biotype, patients with a thin biotype, so on the left here, triangular teeth, thin biotype tissue, those patients tend to lose a lot more papilla in an FP1 than patients on the right. With more of a rectangular tooth, thicker tissue, there's a good chance you're going to maintain the papilla with an FP1. Also, distance of the implants, right? What happens is we need bone, right? The saying is that tissue is the issue, but bone sets the tone. Tissue follows bone. We don't actually want to reduce the bone. The papilla for an FP1 is really the biggest challenge. You see these photos where someone will remove an FP1 prosthesis, get these nice little sexy peaks of tissue. Those are very, very challenging, and that's dependent on the bone between the implant. And so this is from Tarnow. Like, we do want to maintain the bone, and the relationship of the implant position has a lot to do with that. The problem is really this for this case here is, number one, she has pneumatized sinuses. So we cannot place implants here in the posterior because her sinuses come down, right? For an FP1, we want something like this, right? At least 6 implants, and the implants need to be in the tooth positions because we're creating ovate pontics around every position. So they got to be in that position, something like this. And I think the challenge is that a lot of people will look and not plan the implants appropriately, right? This is all in co-diagnostics, and this is really the key to this case. Is number one, you need to make sure you have enough space for your multi-unit. If you're using photogrammetry for this, you got to have multi-units. You can't go direct to fixture as of today. And for her, we can't, right? If I was going to do an FP3, my bone reduction would have to be probably up here, but her sinuses are where the red is. So this is not going to be an FP3 case. And so we're going to have to punt her to do something else. But one of the takeaways is that I would recommend you do not remove bone for these cases. It's very common to see people do what's called a scalloping guide, where they will remove bone for these cases. And the thought is that we need to have enough biologic width for the prosthesis, the ovate pontic, and the multi-unit abutment. So we need to create these types of jigs where the surgeon could put this on, he could see where the pontics are, and then actually scallop the bone to that prosthesis. The problem with that is that the body will automatically remove some of that bone for us. And so if we're removing bone, there's going to be additional bone loss after that, and then we see failures. So this is that same case. What will happen is we plan the implant here, and if we do a bone reduction, right, the body will naturally move the bone, and you'll lose some of that. The data doesn't really well document how much bone we can lose on these FP1 cases. It's highly variable, but really don't know. It could be anywhere from 0.5 millimeter to 1 millimeter. But on a case like this, right, once these teeth come out, the bone's going to move up crustally, and it's going to move in facially. That's going to happen naturally. If you do a scalp, if you remove this bone, you will have additional bone loss, and that's where we get into issues. About 25% of the cases that we do are revisions. Almost all of those are FP1 revisions, and I get cases like this all the time. Right, this is a patient who had, these are final, quote unquote, final zirconia prosthetics, and these are all ridge lap. Why? Well, number one, inappropriate temporaries, no ovate pontics, inappropriate implant position planning, and then number two, they scalped and bone, the body naturally will lose that anyway. This is very common for us to see on a case that wasn't done surgically and treatment planned appropriately. We did a case with a patient out of the state. He was an older gentleman who was very, very skinny. He had late-stage Parkinson and non-restorable dentition. So they removed his teeth. He had no dentures. He was losing all his weight. They needed to give him teeth. So they scanned him. We did photogrammetry, and then we made a prosthesis for him. This is how we planned it. This is August of 2025. You can see where we planned the tissue pressure to be. And again, like this case here had no temporary. And so you will have a little bit of ridge lap to create some sort of semblance of emergence of the gingival profile. They only placed 4 implants. So there's a big span here of no implants. But we did titanium with a bar. And then the dentist called me about a month and a half ago. And they're like, hey, he's lost a lot of tissue. I'm like, okay, well, scan the case, send it back to me. So they scanned him in January. This is the scan. You can see how much bone loss occurred in that year. And if I superimpose the two, he lost almost 2.5 millimeters just on the facial, right? And part of that is, number one, when you do these cases, right, you can see there's a big edentulous area here, right? There's no implants holding those bone in place. So you end up seeing bone loss like you would do on an immediate denture, essentially. So big changes. I'm going to skip ahead here and then go to the takeaways for FP1s. But basically what I do is, for an FP1, I will do a same-day print. So we scan the case, we'll print it, we'll deliver it same day, ideally when the patient's still sedated, because there will be some pressure against the tissue. If I do this next day, what's going to happen is we're basically putting all this pressure into an open wound. That's very, very challenging and difficult. So preferably we do a same-day print, and then that's better than the next-day delivery. We scan with the flap open. So for photogrammetry, we scan with the flap open. I can see the bone. We design the prosthesis based on where the bone is. So we have proper ovate pontic positions. We mill PMMA as a backup. And then ideally, we leave the patient in the tent for more than 6 months, because we'll know that ideally at 12 months, we'll see all that tissue in that bone sort of stabilize. So ideally, we keep them in a longer temporary. I charge more for an FP1, because I know that in that time, I'm going to mill a couple different temporaries. So we charge about $1,000 more for an FP1, and then we tell them we include all the temporaries for that, because we want them to be in a good long-term temporary, so that when we finally restore the case, they're in the proper position. So I'll finish with this, is that there are definitely a lot of ups and downs in this process, and you will find yourself here with something, whether it's technology or cases or whatever, and you got to find and work your way out of it. My wife's Korean. This is her dad, Paul. Her dad was also a down technician, so we're both, I guess, second generation. And then I did this. It's so funny. I gave this talk in Mississippi, and I was like, "Who has watched Squid Games?" No one even knew what squid was, probably. But we watched Squid Games, and then my wife's like, "Hey," I'm like, "Oh, the hair looks so cool," and she was like, "Well, they're all perms. You know that, right?" I'm like, "Oh, I didn't know Korean dudes got perms," and so she was like, "Hey, like, don't you wonder what you would look like with a perm?" I was like, "I mean, I guess." She's like, "You're almost 40. Like, do you want to die not knowing what you look like with a perm?" I'm like, "Well, you're right. And so she hooked me up with her Korean friend Jeannie, and so I went to see her. This was on Halloween Day. It's at 5 p.m. I sent my wife a picture, and she was like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "What did you tell him?" I told her I wanted a perm. And so she was like, "Well, did you give her any other instructions?" So I was like, "Well, I told her I wanted some nice texture." And she's like, "Those curls are way too small. This is going to look terrible." And so I'm like, "Well, it's too late now. Like, it's already in there. That's a chemical reaction. It's already happened. You can't just stop it." And so I come home, and my wife falls down crying, laughing, because I come home with this wiry puby mess. And I'm in the valley of despair with my hair here. And so I had a couple options, right? I can shave my head. I can shave my head and then start over. But like, you shave your head, you're in that weird, like, in between having short hair and long hair, and like, it may not come back all the same. That was not a good option. So you know what? I'm gonna work my way out of it. So I found some good product. I found a new person. This is Alicia, right? Round 2 with Alicia, and so much better, right? So much better. Look at wiry puby, nice curls, big difference. I mean, it's all about staying with it. And then, you know what? I feel like today I'm killing it, right? I mean, I see you guys looking at it. I'm sticking with it, and the curls. Perms don't help with receding hairlines, but it still looks cute. So I would say, if you're going to stick with anything, digital full arch is worth sticking with. There is a bit of a process to get through it, but it's definitely worth the journey. Thanks. That's my time. Appreciate it. I'll stick around for questions if you have any.
Thank you, Charles. Here's a gift on behalf of the DLAP for you. Cool, thank you. For those getting their CDT credit, please look at the back doors. We'll get you scanned in. And if you haven't already signed in on the clipboard, please go ahead and do that for us as well. All right, thank you.